All right, welcome. Here's the Dev Platform Weekly Update. We're going to run through some exciting things that have been done and are in progress. We are kind of coming up on the end of the quarter, and so there's some particular things that we are focusing on for that. So the first, let's go over the kind of done column here. So near CLI and Rust. So currently near CLI is a JavaScript package, and we're looking at making this all in Rust. And we have merged in extension system for the CLI to make it kind of as robust as possible. And actually, Serhi, do you want to maybe describe for a moment what like extension system means in this context? Oops, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. So we realized that we cannot deliver all the functionality that people want because it's so different in each case and sometimes even personal. So we introduced this extension system, and now everybody who wants to extend the functionality of the new CLI, they can do it. They can write their own extensions, and with their own functionality, it's relatively easy. Any binary that can be executed can become a near extension. So yeah, if you're interested, participate, create pull requests or even just your own projects, and add them to the near CLI.
Great, thank you. Beautiful. Here's repo right here, and we'll have links to it. SDK docs. So if you haven't seen, this is a kind of targeted toward for now, the Rust SDK, and it lives here, and it's fleshed out on a lot of concepts that people have been curious about. And I think previously we had examples that you could learn from, but this is really going to walk you through this. So in terms of what's done here, we added a link to the sort of all-encompassing docs, which is docs.near.org. And then here are some new sections we added in terms of reproducible builds, just regular build instructions, because there's a few flags that you have to know about, and a section on some post-processing ideas that you may want to do to reduce the size and whatnot. Near SDK RS, on this front, this is really interesting. I'd like to take a moment if we can. I don't think we covered this yet because this was exactly a week ago. Implementation of the callback result annotation. So if you have used callbacks in this async blockchain that is near, it wasn't super easy to determine if something had failed and also get the result. So I will maybe go over to this tab, and Austin, if you just want to say a couple of quick words on this, that could be fun.
Yeah, so essentially the TLDR of this is just for handling the callbacks. This just basically means that you're able to handle the error if there is one, so that you can gracefully handle it and do whatever you want with it. Because I think if you're using the annotation of callback before, it would just panic and you'd have to kind of just accept that was the case, or you'd have to write a lot of manual code to have to handle it gracefully. But now you can it'll just receive it as a result, and then you can do whatever you want with it inside the callback function.
Yeah, thank you. This is gonna be great. I think this is gonna make things way less confusing, less code. It's gonna really be great. So thank you. This has been an issue for a while, and it's gonna be buttery smooth now. And so that is merged into SDK RS, but I don't believe that there's been a pre-release for that. Just wanted to note that.
Yeah, there hasn't. No.
Okay, great. Sandbox Runner. So just for the sake of repetition, simulation tests are being deprecated in favor of sandbox testing. And there's a runner that runs this kind of sandbox node. And in the JavaScript, we've got a release here. Great. And Willem, I see you got some points added here too. Do you want to fly through these?
Yeah, sure. So it was probably the biggest release we had so far in terms of just the size of it. But yeah, so before, every time that you would run so you can run tests, write one test, run it on Sandbox local node, or run it on testnet. There's some functionality you can't use on testnet that you can do on Sandbox, like patching state, which we'll go over later. But for the most part, most tests will be able to run on both. But the issue was for testnet that to create a sort of fresh account for each test, we were using this endpoint that had a rate limit. For every 15 minutes, you could only make 10 to 15 accounts. So the result of this is that now these accounts are only created the first time you run the tests, and they get cached. And so that helps to not only make it so you're speed up the test, since you're not needing to go through this creation step, but also that we can track the accounts that are created in each test and then delete them at the end, refunding back to the test account. And we also added these, Chad, who's not here, is made this new library called near units for parsing and printing of different units in near. So for instance, here's an example of parsing tin tear gas. And so then now it just makes it more readable for typing stuff in, and also for looking at units that have more than 24 zeros. It's hard to see. And yeah, and so then the next part is that we improved the actual runner itself. Before it was when you created it, it was a promise, but now it's an internal promise, so that then when you just get the instance right away, and then each time you call run, it waits until it's ready. This makes it much easier for setting stuff up. You don't need to rely on any testing frameworks before all feature. And you can also just use it in your vanilla test files, and makes it so you can write at top level, because awaits are not allowed in top level JavaScript. And yeah, and so that you can also use this test.concurrent, which is a feature of Jest, probably maybe some other testing libraries, which then before you could it would run each test and then complete it before starting to run the next one. Whereas now, as soon as it gets to some sort of promise or an await, it'll just run the next test. So that sped up our tests a considerable amount. And now pretty much the longest running test is within a file is the thing that's the length of the test, the whole file. And then there's this new transaction result, which Austin had come into experience with when he was trying to be able to interact with the data he was getting back from running transactions. So this will let you peer into logs, into promises, that intermediate results, all that fun stuff. And yeah, so that's a big one. It's out there, so hopefully people will have better experience with testnet.
Awesome. And sort of broadly on this note of Sandbox Runner, there have been discussions recently that so JavaScript, first of all, there's been incredibly fast work on the sort of runner JavaScript side of things. So that's one aspect that is kind of putting it ahead. And also there is already a near API JS library that has a lot of helper methods that talks to the RPC and has been used pretty robustly. Of course, it can be improved, but it's been in use for a long time. We don't have the same thing for Rust quite yet. And so while we are really focusing on having people who write Rust smart contracts have a Rust only sort of system of tests, there may be a period where it makes sense to just have the JavaScript runner sandbox system instead for now. So moving on from that, I guess we do have some work done on this Rust implementation. And Fong, do you want to give a little rundown while I open up this tab?
Sure. So far, the Rust version only supports local nodes, so we can be able to run some tests locally with just a sandbox, but not testnet with what runner.js has. But we can pretty much do some very hackish stuff like deploying a contract, creating accounts, and just being able to call functions and view functions in general. So some very some more of the essential stuff, but it's not ergonomic to use. Future work with NAR or near API RS, once that's up and running, we'll be able to refine this a lot better then. But for now, it's just very rough edges, but it's very usable still. So
beautiful.
Yeah, feel free to hack on it if anyone wants to try for it.
Thanks. All right, and then we move to the in progress, and there's some Sandbox Runner stuff. Oh yes, so this is exciting. Spooning, testnet, in progress. And so I put a little parentheses here. People can correct me if they would like to expand on this. Just like taking the state of a smart contract that's on testnet, apply it to your local system, and be able to kind of iterate and see how it behaves. So that is the idea of spooning when we're talking about that here. And there is an open pull request, I think from yesterday, about this. So this will be really big. And there are some limitations currently, but I won't even go into that because that will be solved fairly soon. But this is going to be really great. And the Metabuidl Hackathon is still going on until Sunday. So it's not too late. Sign up and register. There's cash to be had. There's awesome stuff to hack on. So this is something that is currently ongoing, and folks are leaning into this in terms of like support. The DevRel team at Near has done a really great job of doing support. I think that they've done the lion's share of this possibly, but this is still happening. So this is definitely in progress and ongoing. Oh yes, I think this is important to mention that there is kind of like a ongoing NFT issue. So if you're watching this video and you have been implementing NFTs, maybe for the hackathon, maybe just for your own project, it's probably a good idea to just make sure that this standard in particular is being followed when it comes to approval IDs. I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding with a couple of implementations, and sometimes that affects other people. So if you're watching this video and doing NFTs, please check Nomicon. We're all kind of getting on the same page about that right now. And then lastly, OWS and Dev Dashboard. And actually, Josh, do you want to say a couple words? Cooking up something big for developers?
Yes, happy to. Yeah, so we'll be revealing more specifically what all this is about in the coming weeks for community feedback, much like we did for the CLI, and we try to do for every large initiative here. But I can tease it a little bit in the sense that the Dev Dashboard really is going to help. At least initially, is really going to help you with the operations side of your dApp. So things like managing your RPC usage, an explorer that's specific for your dApp, so more easily managing and monitoring your contracts, things of that nature. So be on the lookout for that. Like I said, more specifics will be coming soon, but really excited about it.
Great. All right, I think it's a pretty great update for this past week. As we talked through this, did anyone like think of something? Did anything come to mind that we want to mention before breaking?
The only other thing is the caching vector in the SDK RS came in too. So that I guess I can cut a release just to have those like two features in the pre-release. I guess I can do that either today or sometime soon. But yeah, they're all in masters, so I guess people can start playing around with that if it helps.
Thank you for saying that. I actually I knew that there's one more thing to add, and that is a big one. And maybe you can give a better expand on the way I'm going to describe this. But basically, vector, which is a data type that we have in our SDK, is kind of underlies a lot of the other collections. And this effort makes that kind of iterable. And so what are the consequences of that? The positive consequences of things that people can do now that this has gotten improved?
Yeah, so I guess the two main differences is just that the API is going to be more closely matching the Rust standard vector, and then the other part is just that there is this caching layer, so that if you're ever accessing certain parts of the vector more than once, then you won't have to pay storage costs, multiple times for each time that it's read. It'll keep all the changes in memory, and then it'll just make one change at the end of the method call instead of having to do many redundant reads, which should, in some cases, or I guess I can't really say exactly the use case, but it should reduce gas costs, but it won't be the case for every use case. It won't reduce gas costs, but yeah, there are those benefits.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to add it to this. Great. Well, thanks, folks. And
I added one more thing too. I added at the bottom. Grain's coming. This is a I need to review it. It just came out like 5 days ago. It's their initial example for using runner. Some stuff's not working, so it's not. Still some work to be done, but.
And what's it called? Is it grain lang? I think it's worth checking out here. So it's grain-lang.
Yeah.
.org.
Mm-hmm.
This is so if you don't know, this is like a really interesting project, and I know that this is like seems like it's gonna be a really good onboarding for people who like don't want to dive directly into Rust yet, but want to do kind of TypeScripty things. Do you want to say some more on that while I click through the documentation and kind of show that?
Yeah, so it's uses OCaml and Reason as for the compiler, and it's like AssemblyScript. It's a WebAssembly first language, so their target of WebAssembly is very good. So it makes smaller binaries, and it's got a good type system that you, as you can see here, you don't have to say what the types are. You can infer them in a lot of places, so it's just a more I would say robust abstraction. It has more robust abstractions, and will be sort of an inner between AssemblyScript and Rust in terms of being able to have not have to have all of the I would say not restrictions but safety measures that Rust puts in place. This one's a little less demanding on for people that are new to this type of programming.
It even has match. Yeah, some of this I didn't even realize. This is just so close to Rust. This is really cool. Wow. Well, that's exciting. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining, and we will see everyone here next week.
See you guys.